Well, it may be a Black Friday in more ways than one if South Africa is downgraded further by rating agencies. S&P and Moody's were scheduled to announce possible rating actions tonight, and the fear is that South Africa could lose billions of invested dollars if South Africa is downgraded again. The main focus relating to debt denominated in rands. So just a quick recap, there are three major global rating agencies, Moody's, Fitch and S&P, assessing the ability of countries to pay back loans, essentially. S&P and Fitch have already downgraded South Africa into sub-investment grade, or so-called junk, while Moody's places us one notch above junk. The main rating, this is the main rating or sovereign rating, and it's actually linked to the debt that South Africa holds in foreign currency. Analysts are now digging deeper to look at the rating for rand-denominated debt, and that local currency rating, as it's called, could prove to be even more significant. That's because South Africa borrows from investors by issuing bonds, and most of those bonds are issued in rand. Fitch is the only rating agency that has placed the local currency rating in junk thus far. The fear is that if S&P or Moody's follow suit tonight, investors will move out of those bonds. It depends on the rules, but some platforms that advertise our bonds that we use to raise debt will have to remove them if there's more than one junk rating. And of course, a downgrade means it will cost us more to borrow on global markets, which means more money for interest payments, less money for spending on things like housing, bridges and schools. So this affects everybody. Well, for a global investor perspective, we're joined by Razia Khan from Standard Chartered. She joins us from London. Razia, welcome to you. What are you hearing? What are you expecting?
Well, everyone is waiting, of course, for this ratings decision. The announcements are expected around the time that U.S. markets would normally close. So that's around 2100 GMT, 2300 for South African viewers. That's quite late. Risks are considered to be very finely balanced. There has, of course, been deterioration in South Africa's growth profile. Growth has disappointed. We've seen per capita income growth that has been negative for a few years. The recent medium-term budget policy speech was a big talking point. What we did see was a revenue miss with the medium-term budget and very little in the way of concrete measures to try to put that right in the coming years. And the suggestion, therefore, is that South Africa may continue to see big budget deficits and a debt-to-GDP ratio that eventually reaches 60% of GDP. Now, very crucially, because so much does depend on the rating decisions this time around. The reason, as you've already alluded to, is that it is important that South Africa's local currency debt, that is, its rand debt, continues to be rated investment grade for South Africa to qualify for certain indices that are widely followed by global investors. If it loses that investment grade rating, then it could stand to see far more substantial outflows of capital than has been the case to date. So many viewers will probably be thinking that South Africa has seen downgrades. The foreign currency downgrades matter a little less for the country, which has not been that reliant on external borrowing. The question is, are ratings agencies going to give South Africa the benefit of the doubt? Are they going to allow the time for reforms to be put in place, perhaps for the February budget to deliver a different fiscal path? Or will they take the decision that they've seen enough and now's the time that they need to downgrade the country's rating? Our view, of course, and perhaps our hope, is that South Africa does come out of this with its investment grade rating intact.
I hope so too, but then it's just a question of time, perhaps.
This is well the case. No one should doubt that there is a lot of pressure on South Africa to be seen to be doing more with macroeconomic reforms. Is there scope to do more with so-called micro reforms that might help boost the growth trajectory? Are there measures that can be put in place, perhaps as early as the February budget, that promise a better pace of revenue collection further out? There will be a great deal of pressure even if South Africa sees some reprieve today, there will still be pressure to be able to demonstrate those measures that might improve its creditworthiness going forward.
Razia, we're running out of time. Very quickly, how serious could those outflows be? I've seen different estimates, 10 billion, 12 billion, 20 billion. And remember, this is in dollars. What sort of effect could that have as well?
Well, there's been a lot of debate about whether some of the funds that currently invest in South African bonds are going to remain in the country, whether a lot of the passive investors tracking the indices will exit as soon as they have to, or whether South Africa could see more high-yield appeal. This ultimately means that no one is very certain of the magnitude of outflows. The estimates that we think are likely to be accurate are probably in the region of $6 to $8 billion, but the truth is nobody knows for sure. The only consensus is that it will be painful. It will matter for South African markets should this happen.
Thank you very much. Razia Khan on the line for us from Standard Chartered. And